hope she's sleeping. Well, how could she be sleeping if I'm in her room? Hello navigators, this is Shelly. How you doing? Thank you so much for tuning in. So anyway, I wanted to talk about parenting, and of course my sidekick's not here. I thought it would be appropriate to talk about parenting in Ella's room, in her space. My parents, my dad was laid back, and my mother was the authoritarian, and she was no nonsense. She was the strict one. In fact, between my parents, my mom is the one who gave me a spanking. I got a spanking once in my life. I remember I was 8. My younger sister and I were jumping on the bed, playing, and she told us to be quiet. We didn't listen. It was too much fun. So she calls me out of the room because, of course, I was the older one. And wham! And all throughout, which used to terrify me a lot, she used to be like, go get me a stick, and you'd have to go out and pick a stick. And now that was always the challenge. Do you pick a big stick that's going to hurt? Do you pick a little stick so that it doesn't hurt? But of course you wanted to pick something medium, because guess what? If you got a stick that wasn't good enough, then you probably get twice the whooping. It was always the promise of whooping, but she never carried it through. She had only whooped me once when I was 8, but afterwards, it was always the promise of being whooped and go get me a stick, and then you'd behave because you don't want to get that whooping. Anyway, I was the middle child. I am the middle child. They kept us in check. And what really stuck with me is before I came out to the US when I was 18, I remember my father having a talk with me, and he said, but he trusts me. And that's all I needed to hear. He said he trusted me, and that carried me through. Can you imagine 18 on my own, no parents, first time on my own? It would have gone one of two ways. I could have gone crazy, or would have just stayed in line. And I stayed in line just by those simple words, knowing that my father trusted me, So I never went berserk, during my college years, because I felt like he trusts me and I did not want to betray that trust. He released me to go find myself to be. And I did not want to disappoint him. So that kept me in check. So now it comes to me being a parent. I knew I always wanted to be a parent, always wanted to have 2 kids. But as things turned out, I only ended up with 1. And I was older. I was ready for that time in my life to be a parent. So Ella comes along, and I'm using all the skills that I had being parented, because I'd never been a parent before. I was trying out things for the first time, and of course, people will give you all kinds of advice. They'll tell you all kinds of stories. But in the end, with parenting, I think it depends on the child, and it also depends on the parent themselves. What I've experienced with Ella is that I let her be. I am not a hovering mom, because I know, if in the span of her whole entire life, we're only together where I can influence her. So, I got her, and then after that, I leave her to the world. So from her infancy, I've kind of set my mind up that way, that yes, even though she's mine, and she's come from my body and she has my DNA, really she's for the world, So I do not possess her. I treat her as an individual. I treat her with respect, and she gives me the same respect back. Because I know she has feelings, she's a human being, as much as I'd like her to be like me, she's going to be whoever she is. Quite unfair for me to expect her to be exactly like me, or she's a unique individual, and I treat her as such. Now, we are close, and she never crosses that boundary to be disrespectful, because I never let that happen. Yes, we can be close. It's time for fun and games, tickle, and let's have fun. And then there's time whereby I'm mom, and I realize consistency is key. I never threaten, and I carry through with my promises. So she knows if I say, you know what, you're not going to watch TV for the whole weekend, I carry through. I never threaten, and I find that works very well with me. So my words carry a lot of weight with her, you know. So if I say, you know what, you need to, be quiet and just have some quiet time for 30 minutes, then guess what? She has to have quiet time for 30 minutes. I do not change my mind. I do not second guess myself. So I find that for the main part, consistency is key. I never give her mixed messages. I never give her mixed signals. If I'm unhappy, I am unhappy. If I'm happy with what she's done, then I'll express that happiness. So there's never a moment where she wouldn't know how I'm going to react, or if I say something that I do not carry through with it. And I find that has worked wonders with me. And I think it works not only in parenting, but just as human beings. If you tell someone you're going to do something, carry through with it. That way your words have some weight and they carry meaning, versus backing up and changing and being inconsistent. That's my little token that I'd like to share with you. Be consistent. Okay? Do not switch, because then the child gets different. What message are you sending me? First you said it wasn't okay to watch TV after 10. Now you're letting me watch TV after 10. Let the rules be the rules. And if you're going to amend them, make sure you explain it that way it resonates with them. Reprimanding Ella or sharing or even just teaching her something, I always check for understanding, because I am explaining things from an adult's point of view, and however much I try to make it simple and bring it down to a child's level, there may be some mixed information or miscommunication in there where she doesn't understand why. So I've always let her know that if you do not understand why I'm asking you, express that so I can give you the reasoning behind it. And I find that if you provide reasons, not that you're explaining yourself, but you have to leave those lines of communication open. If they understand why, okay, why do I have to go to bed early? Because guess what? You're going to be tired, and children need 10 hours of sleep. You have to explain it once, they get it, they understand it, then they're not going to fight you the next night. But why do I think kids do that because they don't understand why. One time you're letting them stay up until 12 midnight, then another time you're asking them to go to bed at 8, then you're inconsistent with the message. So I find that consistency is key, and whenever I present a new concept, I make sure that I check for understanding to make sure that she gets it and she understands it. So that works out very well with me. And kids try their boundaries, and she'll try to push, to see if she'll change my mind. But once my mind is made up, my mind is made up. She knows that I'm open to suggestion, especially if it's a good idea. So I'm not always the authority. I am 95% the authority, but if she has something, that it's another option that I didn't consider, then I'll definitely give her 5 minutes, to listen to her reasoning. And then if it's right and it makes sense and it goes with our little routine, then by all means I do give in. So also that give and take. They have to know that they can come to you with anything and trust, because you're the closest person they have. Otherwise, if they do not have that closeness and they do not trust you, guess what? They're going to go outside the home. They're going to seek that trust and opinion from somebody else. And then guess what? Then you're not as influential in their lives as the other people, because the other people tend to listen to them and reason with them. So this is my whole take. Is it right or wrong? It's what works for me. And I just figured that I'd want to share it. This is my 2 cents, my token about parenting. The beautiful thing about being a human is that we're adaptable. So regardless of the situation, we adapt. To some it comes a little bit easier than others. So the same thing applies to parenting. Once, whether you're prepared for that baby or not, you adapt. And you do the best you can with your experience. Since I wish they give licenses before people got, pregnant or considered becoming parents. I mean, you need a license for almost everything else. To drive a car, because you may affect other people. But you can imagine the power that you have for having a child's life in your hands. You mold them into who they become as adults. Whether you're a negligent parent, whether you're a hovering parent, you affect them, and they become who they are because of you. So it's such a huge responsibility, and I'm an advocate for that. So if they ever have a petition to sign up for you to get classes or a licensing to be a parent, I'd be all in, because most of us, I think we're ready, we're not. Sometimes we're just thrown in and parenthood is thrown upon us, and we just kind of muddle and make our way through it, and affecting these human beings that did not request or ask us to bring them into being. So as a parent, we should consider ourselves to be very powerful, because we touch someone's life greatly and we affect who they are. And please do leave a comment about your parenting techniques, or what has worked for you or what hasn't worked for you. And of course, if you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to share so we can have a conversation about it. And if you liked what you've seen and you've heard, please do subscribe, do share the video, and let's go out there and change the world one soul at a time, one person at a time, one child at a time. Until next time, lah.